Well, President Trump promised that when he entered office, he was going to look at the Russia-Ukraine situation and try to facilitate an actual end to the war. People who've been watching this war very closely understand that Russia's original goal, which was to take Kyiv, to completely ingest and then digest all of Ukraine, turn it into a functioning part of the new Russian empire, that failed. And that failed very early on in the war. But very quickly, the war then transmuted into something else, and that was a Ukrainian attempt, backed by Europe, backed by the Biden administration, to take back portions of the country that had essentially been conquered by Russia in 2014 after the Euromaidan revolution. The attempt to take the Donbass and Crimea back from Russian forces, that was largely doomed to failure, because the only way to do that would have been to arm up the Ukrainians to the extent that it might have prompted a larger Russian intervention using perhaps things like tactical nuclear weapons. That is the only way that could have been done, or to allow the Ukrainians to attack inside Russia in such a way that could have provoked a larger war. Now, it may be that those concerns over a larger war were exaggerated. However, the risk-reward relationship there was out of balance. The reality was that the West had very little interest in Ukraine fighting a large-scale war to take back Donbass and Crimea, areas that are predominantly, by virtually all polling data, even before the fake Russian democratic takeover, those areas were very pro-Russian historically. And so Russia taking over those areas, while it is devastating to the economy of Ukraine, much of the oil-rich area of Ukraine is in its east in the Donbass region. Crimea, of course, is on the Black Sea, and so much of the warm water ports available to the Ukrainians were via Crimea. The reality was that barring some sort of massive war effort, much larger than anything that Ukraine was actually given, those areas were not going to be retaken by Ukraine. And so this conflict had settled into a stalemate for almost 3 years at this point, because the original invasion took place at the end of February 2022. And for a very long time, the Biden administration had a conflicting strategy, a mutually exclusive strategy. On the one hand, the Biden administration suggested that they would continue to provide endless aid until, quote unquote, victory was achieved. But they refused to either provide the necessary aid to achieve full-scale victory or to define victory as something other than full-scale victory. These were mutually exclusive tactics. If they were defining victory as Ukraine takes back Donbass and takes back Crimea, then you have to give Ukraine the weaponry necessary in order to accomplish that. Anything less than that is going to lead to stalemate and loss. Or theoretically, you redefine victory to survival, meaning Russia already controlled Donbass and Crimea before the 2022 invasion. And so Russia's goal had already been defeated, at which point victory could have been achieved by any sort of rational stretch of the imagination simply by fending off further Russian territorial aggression. And by that measure, the war should have come to an end a couple of years ago, because basically the battle lines in Ukraine have been fairly solidified for 2.5 years at this point. Henry Kissinger, the late Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State under Richard Nixon, among other titles, he had proposed that this off-ramp essentially be offered way back in May of 2022. And frankly, I thought that was the correct approach, because there was no actual end goal that was achievable. And the Biden administration was openly admitting this. They were saying, we are going to provide weaponry up until victory is achieved. How is victory defined? They said, we don't know. Okay, well, you cannot win a war if you refuse to define victory. And again, either victory is going to be the taking back of all Ukrainian territory, which would have required the Biden administration to send F-16s to Ukraine, among other things, or victory had to be defined in some other way, in which case an off-ramp should have been sought. Trump is taking a much more concerted view at reality. And so he has now opened negotiations with the Russian regime. He has put forward a proposal that he meet with Vladimir Putin directly. He revealed on Wednesday, according to the New York Post, that he and Russian President Putin had agreed to start talks immediately to end Moscow's war on Ukraine. He said, we want to stop the millions of deaths taking place in the war with Ukraine-Russia. He said that this war would not have happened if I were president, but it did happen, so it must end. No more lives should be lost. He said that he and his Russian counterpart expressed openness to visiting each other's nations, while letting slip to reporters in the Oval Office Wednesday, we expect that he'll come here and I'll go there, and we're also probably going to meet in Saudi Arabia. Trump added on Truth Social, the negotiation process will begin by calling President Zelensky of Ukraine to inform him of the conversation, something which I will be doing right now. And then he revealed that any American delegation to the peace talks would be led by the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Middle East Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Zelensky then confirmed in a Facebook statement that he and Donald Trump had a meaningful conversation about opportunities to achieve peace and discussed our readiness to work together at a team level and Ukraine's technological capabilities, including drones and other advanced industries. In other words, he was making an argument to Trump that the United States should provide Ukraine with enough weaponry to fend off any future Russian attack. Now, in reality, Zelensky is going to have to be dragged kicking and screaming to the deal, at least publicly. Why? Well, because let's assume you're a Ukrainian citizen and you've watched your brothers and sisters get murdered by the Russians, which is what has happened over the course of this war. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of people, if you combine both sides, dead and wounded. So let's say you're a Ukrainian citizen and you've been told by Zelensky that you're going to not just win the war, you're going to push the Russians off of every inch of Ukrainian land. And now you're going to get less than that. Zelensky is going to have to take the political hit unless the United States is willing to take the political hit. Biden never was. Biden always was cowardly, pusillanimous when it came to the idea that he would take the hit for anything less than a full Ukrainian victory. He did not want to be blamed for Ukraine not being able to push Russia off that land. So instead, he decided to let the war sort of percolate and simmer on. And he was willing to allow his poll numbers to be boosted by Russian and Ukrainian dead. Why? Because he was unwilling to do the thing that actually had to be done, which was in public. Biden would need to have negotiated a deal with Putin over Zelensky's head and then crammed down the deal on Zelensky. And that would have made him a bad guy in the eyes of many members of the left in the United States who, for some odd reason, decided that the Ukrainian flag was going to go in their profile. Now, again, that's fine with me. You want to put the Ukrainian flag in your Twitter profile or whatever. But the reality is that if that's the only flag in your profile, it's kind of strange. And not only that, putting the Ukrainian flag in your profile seemed less like objection to Russian intervention. I don't remember a Georgian flag in any of these people's profile, or even a Ukrainian flag back in 2014 in their profile. I just remember it in 2022, and that was largely because it was tied to the idea that Russia was a pro-Trump force. There's a lot of domestic politics tied up in all of this. But if Joe Biden had been a brave and capable leader, what he would have done is he would have negotiated the off-ramp that everyone saw coming. The off-ramp looks something like this. Ukraine does not become a part of NATO because, again, one of the reasons that Russia says that it invaded Ukraine is because it didn't want to be bordered by NATO nations, even though it already has a bunch of borders with NATO nations. Instead, there would have been effectively a mutual defense guarantee between the United States and Europe and Ukraine to prevent a further act of Russian aggression that was not exactly NATO. There wouldn't have been an entry by Ukraine into the EU, which has always been a sort of hot button issue in Ukraine. In fact, Vladimir Zelensky, when he was first elected, was not somebody who was considered supremely pro-entering the EU. Believe it or not. It's only after the Russian invasion that he seemed to turn wildly in that direction. And what the deal looks like is Ukraine is armed up to prevent a further Russian invasion. Russia gets to claim sovereignty over these areas, which, by the way, it already has. In its own Duma, they've already voted to claim sovereignty over Donbass and Crimea. The international community, probably half accepts it. They don't say, yeah, this is now sovereign Russian territory, but they say that we are not going to foment war over the retaking of that territory. And then everybody sort of goes weapons down for the moment. That doesn't end the conflict. It's more like the Korean War. There's an armistice line. There was never any peace agreement signed at the end of the Korean War. It just ended up that there was a North Korea and a South Korea, and that armistice line has been holding since 1953. Probably the best case scenario is something like that in this particular situation. Well, President Trump said that. And by the way, President Trump is not willing to allow Vladimir Putin to sort of slow play this, to wait for Trump to withdraw aid and then invade the rest of Ukraine. I said this all during the campaign. There was all of this talk, loose talk by both isolationists on the right and nut jobs on the left, that Trump was going to walk into office, immediately pull all aid from Ukraine, and allow Vladimir Putin to stroll down the streets of Kyiv. I said that was not something that Trump was willing to do. Why? Because Trump doesn't want the bad headline. Trump does not want a headline in which he surrenders Ukraine to Vladimir Putin. If there's one thing that President Trump cares about on a personal level, it is not being made to look weak and feckless. And so he was always going to provide continued aid to the point where some sort of off-ramp could be reached. He said that yesterday in a presser. President Trump is a strong president, and he wishes to actually give off the image of a strong president, which is why he's not going to cut off the aid. See, here's the thing. President Trump is deeply American, and this country was founded on strength and on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea and then tried to blockade us when we dumped their tea into the ocean which is why Britain no longer rules us. Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard as well. You don't need to pay $100 a month just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices. With a qualifying plan, you can choose an iPhone 14 or a Samsung Galaxy for $0. And yes, this is for premium service on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy for $0 with a qualifying plan by going to puretalk.com/Shapiro. You can make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. No hassle, no gimmicks, just honest to goodness, wireless, priced right. Again, that's puretalk.com/Shapiro to claim your new iPhone or Galaxy with qualifying purchase from Pure Talk, America's wireless company. Visit puretalk.com/Shapiro for details. Again, that's puretalk.com/Shapiro and get the best wireless for the best price. Also, are you looking to transform the look and feel of your home? Blinds.com makes it incredibly easy to upgrade your windows with custom treatments. Their team of design experts guides you through the entire process, ensuring you find the perfect style and color for every room in your house. What makes Blinds.com stand out is their hassle-free approach. You can choose to handle the measurements and installation yourself or have their local pros take care of everything. There's no showroom markup. Installation is just one low cost, regardless of how many windows you're covering. And I'm a big movie guy, and when I'm watching a movie on the TV and I've got the light shining in through the windows and it's reflecting, it just ruins everything. I need my perfect movie watching environment, which is why I trusted Blinds.com. I don't worry about this anymore. It's no wonder they're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings with over 40,000 five-star reviews. Every purchase is backed by their perfect fit and 100% satisfaction guarantee, giving you complete peace of mind. With hundreds of styles and colors available, you're sure to find the perfect match for your home. Shop Blinds.com right now. Save up to 45%. Get up to 45% off for a limited time at Blinds.com. When you check out online, don't forget to tell them you heard about Blinds.com from The Ben Shapiro Show. Rules and restrictions may apply. Again, Donald Trump speaks to the press every single day. Here he was in the Oval yesterday talking about this.
Does it mean you are not sending any more aid to Ukraine?
No, we are, but we want it secured, and the money is going to be secured.
When would the U.S. stop sending funding? When would the U.S. stop sending funding?
Because if we didn't do that, then Putin would say he won. We're the thing that's holding it back. And frankly, we'll go as long as we have to go because we're not going to let the other happen. But President Putin wants to have peace now, and that's good. And he didn't want to have peace with Biden.
This is a pragmatic, utilitarian approach to the situation. It has been the correct approach for several years. Joe Biden just was unwilling to do it because Trump will be seen by many people on the left particularly as a bad guy for having sold out Ukraine. But the reality is Ukraine was never going to be able to retake this territory. And this is something the Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said yesterday. He said, listen, trying to go back to the pre-2014 borders, namely Donbass and Crimea becoming an integral part of Ukraine again, that is not realistic at this time. And trying to pretend that it is foolishness that leads to death.
We will only end this devastating war and establish a durable peace by coupling allied strength with a realistic assessment of the battlefield. We want, like you, a sovereign and prosperous Ukraine. But we must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective. Chasing this illusionary goal will only prolong the war and cause more suffering.
He is correct about this. Again, this has always been the correct position. I've been advocating for this position since a couple of months into the war. So Trump had a conversation with Zelensky, and then he put out a statement, quote, he, like President Putin, wants to make peace. We discussed a variety of topics having to do with the war, but mostly the meeting that is being set up on Friday in Munich, where Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will lead the delegation. I am hopeful that the result of that meeting will be positive. It is time to stop this ridiculous war where there has been massive and totally unnecessary death and destruction. God bless the people of Russia and Ukraine. And again, Trump is trying to warm relations with Russia, given the fact that the cold relationship with Russia has not been particularly productive at this point in time. Does that mean that he trusts the Russians? Absolutely not. Trump is not a fool. He's not going to trust Vladimir Putin, who's a deeply untrustworthy, evil dictator. That's what he is. He throws people off third stories of buildings if they happen to cross his regime. But Trump understands power politics. It's something he innately understands in his bones. The president goes on, quote, we both reflected on the great history of our nations. He's talking about his discussion with Putin and the fact that we fought so successfully together in World War II, remembering that Russia lost tens of millions of people and we likewise lost so many. We each talked about the strengths of our respective nations and the great benefit we will someday have in working together. President Putin even used my very strong campaign motto of common sense. We both believe very strongly in it. Okay, now, again, Trump likes to use warm words as sort of the carrot, But then the stick still exists. As he said, the aid is going to continue flowing to Ukraine, sufficient to deter the Russians from continuing this invasion. In fact, Trump actually said in the Oval Office he thinks that some of the pre-2014 territory will, in fact, end up in Ukrainian hands. That presumably is because Ukraine, basically ignoring Joe Biden, made territorial incursions directly into Russia, and now they're looking for land swaps, Russian territory for Ukrainian territory.
Do you see any future in which Ukraine returns to its pre-2014 borders?
Well, I think Pete said today that that's unlikely, right? It certainly would seem to be unlikely. They took a lot of land, and they fought for that land, and they lost a lot of soldiers. But it would just seem to me, and I'm not making an opinion on it, but I've read a lot on it, and a lot of people think that that's unlikely. Some of it will come back. I think some of it will come back. Yeah, some of that land will come back.
Okay, so, again, does this sound like Donald Trump is surrendering to Vladimir Putin? If so, you are reading him completely wrong. Now, Hegseth is, again, being practical about this. He says this is not the moment for Ukraine to join NATO because that presumably would be provocative. But we can make many of the same security guarantees without actually them formally joining NATO. Here was Pete Hegseth.
The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. Instead, any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops. If these troops are deployed as peacekeepers to Ukraine at any point, they should be deployed as part of a non-NATO mission, and they should not be covered under Article 5.
Okay, so again, one of the reasons not to cover Ukraine under Article 5 is presumably, let's say that Ukraine gets into another shooting conflict over Donbass or Crimea. That would now obligate all Article 5 members of NATO to actually get directly involved in the war. But he's saying we're still going to make the security guarantees. There may even, in fact, be European troops on the ground to guarantee the peace. This always was the pragmatic solution. Always, always. And Trump's position had to be caricatured by the media as some sort of surrender to Putin. But again, common sense is the watchword. It is the byword. And Trump, by the way, his successes are happening on a daily basis. Yesterday, the Senate confirmed Tulsi Gabbard as the intelligence chief, which is an amazing switch in the nature of the Directorate of National Intelligence. Remember, Tulsi Gabbard was actually put on a no-fly list at one point. She was targeted by the intelligence community because of her past contacts with Bashar Assad in Syria and her supposed past contacts with the Russians. Gabbard, according to the Wall Street Journal, a combat veteran and former Democratic congresswoman from Hawaii, was confirmed by a vote of 52-48 in the GOP-controlled Senate. Senator Mitch McConnell, the former GOP leader, broke with his party to side with Democrats in voting no. McConnell, again, is continuing to make a sort of traditionally conservative case that anybody who is heterodox should not be confirmed. However, that is not going to cut a lot of ice because, again, Trump is the one who's in charge of his administration. The truth is most Republicans probably feel the same way that Bill Cassidy, the senator, feels, which is Trump wants Gabbard, Trump gets Gabbard. Right? I mean, that seems to be the going methodology in the Senate. And frankly, that seems right if you're talking about many of the top-level cabinet secretaries who are answerable directly to the president. I'm not sure that is directly right about many of the people who are being nominated for, say, undersecretary positions. There, the Senate is going to be able to kind of flex its muscle a little bit more in terms of a check and balance on the direction of those departments from underneath. President Trump, in an Oval Office swearing in, called Gabbard, quote, an American of extraordinary courage and exceptional patriotism. He said she would have the responsibility of overseeing urgently needed reforms in the intelligence community. Again, the DNI is sort of a paper position. It's a position that sits on top of the CIA and the FBI and coordinates the two agencies. It was originally put into law as a way of breaking down the Chinese firewall that separates intelligence from CIA and FBI. That firewall had led to 9/11 because the CIA had information about the hijackers and it wasn't passing it along to the FBI because they were afraid that would have compromised the FBI's domestic terrorism investigations and prevented prosecutions. The DNI was supposed to sit above both of those agencies and help coordinate the intelligence from both. That's essentially what Gabbard will be doing. But one of the things Gabbard presumably will be doing is also looking into and investigating many of the malfeasances by the FBI and the CIA over the course of the last 10, 15, 20 years. McConnell, in explaining his vote, said the nation should not have to worry that the intelligence assessments the president receives are tainted by a director of national intelligence with a history of alarming lapses in judgment. But again, I seriously doubt that Tulsi Gabbard is going to be sitting there and just blacklining, redlining, and blacking out portions of reports that don't meet with her political priors. That doesn't seem correct. Okay, so Gabbard has been confirmed. Meanwhile, over at Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy looks like he is ready to be confirmed. The Senate voted 53-47 to end debate on RFK Jr.'s nomination following public statements of support from some GOP senators who'd been on the fence about Trump's pick. In the betting markets, it's like 99% that RFK Jr. ends up being confirmed. Kash Patel will also end up being confirmed as head of the FBI. So President Trump's selections for his cabinet, he's going to get his cabinet. Again, there are some other members of the cabinet who, frankly, I think are so far outside of what Trump would like to do that it is worthwhile talking about shooting them down. That would include Representative Lori Chavez DeRemer, former representative of Oregon, who has been extraordinarily anti-free markets, extraordinarily pro-unions. Putting her at the head of the Labor Department would be kind of a disaster. So I could see Republicans opposing her. And they weren't going to, I think, waste their fire on Tulsi Gabbard or Kash Patel or on RFK Jr. And I think they are right not to do so. Now, the fact is, this administration is letting me sleep more comfortably at night. But it's not just, the fact that Trump got elected and we now have a government worthy of its name. It's also that I have a better mattress. I used to have this old mattress, the one that I got from the mattress store, and it would sag in the middle. And you're like, oh, man, it's probably just as good as everything else. Wrong. Helix is better. You know that feeling when you wake up and your back is already complaining? Well, that was me more often than not. Don't get me started on how my old mattress turned into a heat trap at night. Just terrible. Since switching over to Helix, I wake up feeling ready to take on my busiest days and the craziest headlines. Here's what makes Helix different. They don't believe in one-size-fits-all sleep solutions. Instead, they use their sleep quiz to match you with a custom mattress based on your body type and sleep preferences. Whether you sleep hot, need extra support for your back, or share your bed with a restless partner, Helix has a perfect match for you. And again, I've got that firm mattress that breathes at night. It means I'm sleeping better. Right now, Helix is offering an incredible President's Day sale. This exclusive offer for my listeners is better than you will find if you were just to visit their main website. Visit helixsleep.com/Ben. Get 27% off site-wide, plus 2 free Dream Pillows with mattress purchase and free bedding bundle. That's 2 Dream Pillows, sheet set, and mattress protector with any Luxe or Elite mattress order. That's helixsleep.com/Ben for 27% off site-wide, plus 2 free Dream Pillows with mattress purchase and free bedding bundle. 2 Dream Pillows, sheet set, mattress protector with any Luxe or Elite mattress order. Again, just visit helixsleep.com/Ben for this exclusive offer. Also, it's really frustrating spending hours searching for the best car insurance rates. It's just a waste of time. Some people will spend their entire weekend comparing quotes only to end up more confused than when they started. That's why you will be thrilled to discover Insurify, the insurance comparison site that revolutionizes how we shop for coverage. They have dozens of top insurers competing for your business, and that means better rates for you. The best part, everything happens online. No phone calls, no fees, absolutely no spam. In just 10 minutes, you can secure coverage from trusted insurance providers across the country. Your privacy matters at Insurify. They never sell your information. With their decade of experience and excellent Trustpilot rating, you know you're in good hands. Get to Insurify.com, compare car insurance quotes in real time, and start saving today. That's INSURIFY.com, Insurify.com. Average potential savings based on initial quotes received by 183,234 customers seeking insurance through Insurify. Actual savings may vary depending on state of residence, individual circumstances, coverage selections, and insurance provider. Savings results are not guaranteed. Go check them out right now, Insurify.com. That's Insurify.com. Meanwhile, controversy continues over the cuts that are being made to the federal government under the Trump-Musk revolution in government spending. What's amazing about this is, again, how many people on the left seem to think it's a winning argument to argue in favor of waste, fraud, and abuse. Poll data show that Americans do not like waste in government. The latest polling that I saw from Gallup about these broad issues shows 56% of Americans believe that a huge percentage of government spending is, in fact, waste and abuse. In fact, according to the Gallup poll from this November, just after the election, 55% of Americans believe the government is doing too much. Only 41% believe the government needs to do more. When it comes to the waste inherent in government, most Americans, in fact, the vast majority of Americans, want government made more efficient. Americans' views of the federal government, 26% positive, 58% negative, are second from the bottom of all 25 industries tested. The only industry that is less popular than the federal government is the pharmaceutical industry. A Pew Research poll in April showed that 56% of U.S. adults, this would be April 2024, agreed the government is almost always wasteful and inefficient. 58% of Americans were dissatisfied with the size and power of the federal government. And so what Trump is doing here, and it's quite smart, is he's singling out bad, wasteful, abusive projects, and he is making those the tip of the spear in a broader attack on the size and scope of the federal government. And what's amazing is the Democrats are falling right into it. They're claiming there is no waste, fraud, or abuse. So, for example, yesterday, a Democratic witness named Dylan Hetler-Gaudet testified before Congress, suggesting that he could not see widespread abuse or fraud in the government. He's the director of government affairs at an NGO called the Project on Government Oversight, which again is another one of these ridiculous left-wing front groups funded by George Soros. Project on Government Oversight, but they don't do any government oversight, and apparently the government's doing an amazing job, according to Mr. Hetler-Gaudet.
Waste is different from fraud. Fraud is different from abuse, and abuse is different from both. When we talk about improper payments, they are a subset of those other three categories. But that doesn't tell us the whole picture either. Sometimes improper payments are a function of bad record keeping. Sometimes they are a function of outdated information technology systems. Sometimes they come about through human error, and sometimes they come about through negligence. There are a variety of reasons why improper payments happen. It just simply is not the case that improper payments are only a function of bad people doing bad things with bad intent.
Well, I mean, it's not a matter of bad people doing bad things with bad intent. Whether you intend to waste our money or whether you're just wasting our money is irrelevant to the taxpayer whose money is wasted. President Trump, for his part, again, this is going to be a popular case with the American people. He says, of course there's lots of fraud. Have you seen the size of our federal government?
You should talk about widespread fraud and abuse.
Oh, yeah, tremendous fraud. There's tremendous fraud. And it's hard to believe that you can have that kind of fraud. You're talking about are you talking about what? Wait. Which are you talking? You're talking about with regard to all of the investigations that are going on about this stupidity. What we're going to do is tomorrow I'm having a news conference. I'm going to read to you some of the names that hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars have been given to. And if you tell me that we should be giving money to those things, those entities, I think you'll probably have to leave as a reporter because you're not very talented. When you look at the kind of money, billions and billions of dollars being thrown away illegally, and there's no chance. I mean, I say it in front of our Attorney General, there's no chance that there's not kickbacks or something going on. When you give millions and millions of dollars to somebody that stands to look at something for 15 minutes and walks away with millions of dollars, that money's coming back in some form. And that's only one form of corruption.
Now, what is different about what Trump is doing than what Republicans have historically done is that by unleashing Elon Musk, who's an outsider, and aiming at the technological systems that actually generate the payments, by aiming at the actual machinery of government rather than sort of overall policy, and those are two separate things. When it comes to the bureaucracy, there's the overall policy. Very, very difficult to shape the overall policy without touching the machinery. The machinery is the thing that keeps printing the money and sending the money, and it keeps going no matter what. And you can question the policy, but if you don't actually change the machinery underneath the hood of the car, you're just changing the paint of the car. And the machine continues to move in the same direction. The engine continues to churn. Trump, by unleashing Musk, who is a systems guy, is looking into the technological systems of distribution. He's looking into the employment systems. He's actually looking under the hood of the car of the federal government. And it's ugly what he is finding. Joe Lonsdale, who's an expert at this, he's the founding partner of 8VC, which is a major venture capital firm, one of the founding partners of Palantir. He talked on CNBC about what is different that Elon is doing from historically what Republicans have done.
I have mentors in the Reagan administration who came in looking for these things, and those people were not technical. And so when they went to the bureaucracy and they asked questions, there's so many ways of obscuring and blocking and deterring. And so what Elon did is he got root access, and he went to the tech systems themselves. No one has done this in ever. No president ever has had tech people around him. And they went to the systems and they started finding things like, oh my goodness. And these people who work for the agencies try to confront them and say, no, you can't look at the systems. You're getting around all of our ability to block all this stuff. We thought you'd never actually get to see any of this. And they're freaking out because they're looking. And so it's very transparent. They went to the systems. They actually saw the payments, and the payments were going out to crazy shit.
I mean, this is the point. And this is why everybody in Democrat land is so panicked. Because nobody's actually taken a look at the systems before. Republicans have pledged they're going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. But Trump is just unleashing people into departments that he is the head of, right? He's the president. They all work under him. And he is saying, I want you to go and screw with the systems. If you have to break the system, break it. And then we'll fix the parts that we need to fix. But put sand in the gears. Stop the machine. Stop the machine dead. And that is what Elon has been doing. And it's now pervading it throughout every branch of government. Lee Zeldin, the EPA administrator, who was a guest on our program just last week, he said, listen, I've been trying to identify waste, fraud, and abuse with the help of DOGE, and we're finding it.
Shockingly, roughly $20 billion of your tax dollars were parked at an outside financial institution by the Biden EPA. This scheme was the first of its kind in EPA history, and it was purposefully designed to obligate all of the money in a rush job with reduced oversight. EPA needs to reassume responsibility for all of these funds. We will review every penny that has gone out the door. I will be referring this matter to the Inspector General's office and will work with the Justice Department as well.
Again, is this stuff going to be unpopular with Americans? I'm hard-pressed to see precisely how. Mike Lawler, representative from New York, he was talking about USAID, which, of course, has had its funding dramatically slashed by Musk and by DOGE. And he says, you want to talk about a waste of money? And here's an example of a waste of money by USAID.
You look at some of the expenditures by USAID. For instance, I uncovered over $3 million to a rap artist in Gaza producing anti-Israel, anti-Semitic songs. Is that the best use of American taxpayer dollars? I would venture not. And so one of the things that we're going to do in this hearing tomorrow, obviously, is go through what actually is the role of USAID, what should they be focused on, and frankly, what have they been focused on?
Okay, well, again, he is right about all this. It's not going to be hard to find examples of bad spending, and that is a great way of approaching these issues. From a public relations perspective, it's a great way of approaching these issues because it puts Americans in mind of how much money is being wasted. Now, Democrats are trying to do the opposite. They're trying to find examples of things being cut that are just so devastating. That's every day in the New York Times. Somebody who's been deprived of their government paycheck, and oh, how sad. Somebody who's in Thailand who's been deprived of a medical appointment because USAID is no longer paying for it. Oh, how sad. But the truth is, in a time when Americans feel that America has been overstretched, that our economy is basically stretched beyond its capacity, that we are paying too much money for everything. There's not a lot of sympathy for the Democrat position that we need endless largesse and waste of taxpayer money in order so that one government employee can get her retirement salary at a level that she wishes. That is not going to be a popular position. At the same time, and the Trump government is being very careful and meticulous, actually, in how they are presenting this publicly. One of the things that they are saying is when it comes to things that are really important government benefits, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, we're not touching those things. Now, again, that's not something that I want. I, as a fiscal conservative, would love to see a restructuring of many of these gigantic entitlement programs, which are, in fact, the systemic drivers of our debt. However, when it comes to those programs, Trump is making very clear we're not touching those. Again, he's just going to say waste, fraud, and abuse. We're not going to touch the third rails. Here was the VA Secretary, Doug Collins, saying, you're hearing that veterans' benefits are being cut. That's not true.
There's a one that's going around in the media right now about veterans' benefits being cut. I'm the Secretary of VA. I'm going to tell you right now, that's not happening. They can do hypotheticals all they want. I'm telling you about reality. Reality is veterans' benefits aren't getting cut. In fact, we're actually giving and improving services in our Veteran Benefits Administration. They're actually clearing cases quicker. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Okay, so, and this is all very smart PR. Kristi Noem, who's the head of the Department of Homeland Security, yesterday she announced that she was clawing back payments that FEMA had given to a migrant hotel, the Roosevelt Hotel. She wrote, quote, I've clawed back the full payment FEMA deep state activists unilaterally gave to New York City migrant hotels. FEMA was funding the Roosevelt Hotel that serves as a Tren de Aragua base of operations and was used to house Laken Riley's killer. Mark my words, there will not be a single penny spent that goes against the interest and safety of the American people. And the entire government is being brought to bear behind the idea that they're going to cut the size and scope of the government. All this talk about Musk being a fascist, Trump being a fascist, they're all Nazis. When was the last time you saw a fascist movement that was cutting the size and scope of government? Please name it. Seriously, name it. Attorney General Pam Bondi, fresh off of her confirmation, she says we will use every aspect of law to back what Elon Musk is doing.
I haven't seen Elon Musk tweet. He is a friend of mine. He is a great man. I think he's very frustrated with what's happening in our federal government. You know, at USAID alone, they're giving out billions of dollars that should not be distributed. We're going to back him up. We work our whole lives in this country, and we all pay taxes in this country. And for people to find out that $2 million is going to Guatemala for sex changes is outrageous. And we're going to back up Elon Musk every way we can. That includes lawsuits against these people who are doing that, and we will be successful.
Again, this is a very aggressive approach, and it's going to be very popular. Americans are going to like this. Democrats are going to cry chaos. We'll get to Democratic reaction in just a minute. But what they are saying when they say that the judges are being overridden and all the rest of this, Americans are not in the business of listening to district court judges who say we have to keep spending wasteful dollars because they say so. There's another point that Pam Bondi was making yesterday.
We have so many unelected judges who are trying to control government spending, and there is a clear separation of powers. They're doing it to Elon Musk, who is a great man and a good friend at DOGE. What they're doing to him is to our country is outrageous.
Okay, she is right about all of that. By the way, a judge yesterday did, in fact, lift the ban on Trump's buyout offer to federal employees. According to the Washington Post, a judge on Wednesday lifted his pause on the federal government's deferred resignation program, prompting the Trump administration to swiftly declare victory as it closed the offer to any more workers who might still have been mulling it. That program had been halted since last Thursday, but now the judge said that the union's lawsuit could not succeed because they lacked standing to sue and because his court lacked jurisdiction. Well, good. So, I thought that it was evil for Trump to do so. Trump didn't even continue doing the thing. But again, all these things are going to go to the Supreme Court. And what's amazing is that the left keeps taking legal positions that are pretty much unsustainable on executive power. If Trump were designing in a laboratory some methodology for legally giving the go-ahead and giving the imprimatur of Supreme Court legitimacy to his actions, he's basically doing it. He's doing things that are pretty uncontroversial, actually, under the Constitution. He's being sued. District court judges are ruling against him with these nationwide temporary restraining orders. All that's going to get elevated to the Supreme Court, and in all likelihood, Trump's actions are going to get upheld. That is where we currently stand. In just a second, we'll get to the leftist resistance. They are searching for a methodology of resistance. Singing is one of those methodologies. I'm not even joking with you. First, the best reason to become a Daily Wire Plus member, you're directly supporting the fight. Every dollar goes right back into building a real alternative to the mainstream. More shows, more movies, more investigative journalism. This is how we continue to reshape the culture. But here's another reason. If you like this show, there's more of it waiting for you. Only Daily Wire Plus members get exclusive content at the end of every episode. The show after the show, plus live chats and more. Don't just listen, be a part of it. Download the Daily Wire Plus app or go to dailywire.com/subscribe and become a member today. Meanwhile, Democrats are looking for a way to resist the ongoing Trump train. It's not going amazing. Their tip of the spear in terms of personalities is, believe it or not, Bernie Sanders, who's 100,000 years old. Bernie Sanders was a colleague of Eugene V. Debs. Bernie Sanders may, in fact, have marched with the original Karl Marx. And yet he is being trotted out as the ideological thought leader of the Democratic Party because always and forever, the Democrats continue to double down on stupid. Instead of moderating and moving more toward common sense, they have decided that all of the juice is with the far left. And listen, it could work out for them. You could see a world where, for some exogenous reason, the economy goes through a really rough patch and suddenly the entire country swivels and the pendulum swings the other way and suddenly you got AOC as president. You could see that because, again, politics is unpredictable. But is it a smart move to put Bernie Sanders at the head of your ideological party? I don't see how. It hasn't really borne tremendous fruit for them, but they continue to do it. According to Politico, Bernie Sanders, the two-time presidential candidate, is barnstorming Iowa and Nebraska to rally voters against what he calls the oligarchy, the kind of high-profile offensive that typically signals a potential run for the White House. In Sanders' case, he's more likely paving the way for someone to follow in his footsteps. Well, is he, though? Is he? So Bernie Sanders right now is 83 years old. Could he run for president in 2 years at 85? He could. Why not? Seriously. He's probably looking at Joe Biden and thinking, I'm a spring chicken next to that guy, and that guy was president. Sanders is supposedly not interested in mounting a third presidential campaign. But he's trying to figure out who would carry the torch in 2028. Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's fame, right? The ice cream shop, the socialist ice cream shop that is not in fact socialist. He says, I have no doubt that weighs heavily on his mind. I have no doubt that's a focus of his, as it would be with anyone who's passionate about a campaign, who's passionate about particular issues, and is reaching, according to the actuarial tables, the end of their lives. Sanders is hoping to use his megaphone to invigorate a demoralized liberal base to fight back against President Trump and billionaire Elon Musk as they slash the federal government. Meanwhile, Roseanne Tamaro, longtime friend of Sanders and former labor leader, said, quote, I think he's trying to inspire a very strong resistance to the oligarchy. And it is hilarious to me that the oligarchy is being called Elon Musk when Elon Musk is cutting the size and scope of government. How do you make the case that an oligarchy is running the country on its own behalf when they are literally cutting the amount of funding available to other people, and to themselves, by the way? Elon is a contractor with the federal government. All of his contracts are put under federal scrutiny. He's going to get more scrutiny now than he would have if he'd never involved himself in politics. For sure. By far. Not close. Sanders apparently has a more immediate target in mind. He's looking to influence the budget fight roiling Congress by traveling to battleground districts as part of his upcoming tour. It'll be fascinating to see who he attempts to tap as a sort of heir apparent. There's been a lot of talk about AOC, which, again, we live in a very stupid timeline, so that is quite possible. Meanwhile, speaking of a stupid timeline, Democrats yesterday came up with their piece de résistance, and it was, in fact, a song, a beautiful, beautiful song sung by members of Congress. Somehow, this is worse than Sexy Red.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? We'll fight against DOGE. We'll fight Elon Musk. No Elon scab within our walls. We'll fight from dawn to dusk. Oh, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Wow, that's beautiful. That's just beautiful. Apparently, they were activists at a Save the Civil Service rally because there's nothing that unifies Americans like save the civil service, save the government employees, save the people you are paying so they can do trash DEI jobs or file retirement paperwork in salt mines or something. That is a classic protest song, by the way. Which side are you on? But it was adapted to be about DOGE and Elon Musk. Oh boy. This is what you guys got? Really? And they're trotting out all their most popular faces. They got Bernie, and then they've got Randy Weingarten, the super corrupt head of the American Federation of Teachers. They're trotting her out to say that she's going to sue everybody in sight because there's nothing Americans love more than career bureaucrats and union leaders who have miseducated our children trying to sue everyone into stopping the train for which they voted.
The irony here is at the same exact time as Elon Musk and his coders have information across basically that affects all Americans, he refuses to disclose his interests as someone who is a government contractor who gets probably millions, if not billions of dollars in his own companies in terms of all of this. So number one is to try to stop the data breach. That's number one. And number two is to try to actually get Congress to do the kind of accountability on all of this. But that's why we're going to the courts to try to get the courts to interpret the law and stop this invasion of privacy.
Invasion of privacy. The American Federation of Teachers, which wants to remove your children from you and trans them, they are very deeply concerned about the invasion of privacy of Elon Musk might know your social security number while he's looking into possible cuts. Well, they do have another strategy, which is to just call Elon Musk a dick over and over and over. That's Democratic Representative Robert Garcia who did that yesterday. Again, Democrats are a little frustrated.
Now, I find it ironic, of course, that our chairwoman, Congresswoman Green, is in charge of running this committee. Now, in the last Congress, Chairwoman Green literally showed a dick pic in our oversight congressional hearing. So I thought I'd bring one as well. Now, this, of course, we know is President Elon Musk. He's also the world's richest man. He was the biggest political donor in the last election. He has billions of dollars in conflicts of interest.
Wow. Okay, now notice what Democrats are trying to do, and it's not going to work. They just keep saying President Elon Musk over and over and over, hoping that will somehow seed discontent between Trump and Musk. That is not the way this is going. But here's MSNBC trying to do the same thing. They're so desperate to stop Musk that they're trying to basically get Trump to fire Musk out of some sort of misplaced egotism. It's not going to happen, guys. That's not how this works.
Elon Musk and his co-president Donald Trump have spent the first 3 weeks of their presidency attempting a full assault on the separated powers of the Constitution.
He seems to be acting as Trump's co-commander-in-chief.
And that Elon Musk is acting like a co-president. Trump's billionaire co-president.
He's operating as a co-president, and he was elected by no one.
Elon Musk, as his co-president, fielding questions alongside him in the Oval Office.
It was striking to see Musk standing, the attention of the room seemingly oriented around him.
This is not going to work. Carolyn Leavitt, the White House press secretary, here she was yesterday saying, you guys are being ridiculous with your Musk has the power. He works for the president. Okay, this is somewhat like saying that my producer is the co-host of the Ben Shapiro show. I love my producers, but I'm the host and they're the producer and they work for the show. That's how that works. I mean, I understand that Democrats have never worked in the private sector, and so they don't actually understand, presumably, how this actually operates, but here we go.
Does Elon Musk have power of the presidency?
Absolutely not.
Right.
That's a ridiculous question.
I asked that question because, the Democrats have been hurling insults at Elon Musk, hurling attacks, calling him President Musk. Most recently, Jamie Raskin, the congressman, took it a step further, calling for Musk's impeachment, saying that he somehow usurped the power of the presidency. What's your response?
It's utterly ridiculous. Elon Musk addressed this in the Oval Office yesterday. The president addressed it as well. Elon Musk is serving at the pleasure of the president, just like everybody else on this team. He takes directives directly from the president of the United States.
Yes, again, if this is the best you guys got, it's going to be a long time in the wilderness for all of y'all. Meanwhile, President Trump continues to move forward. This administration is moving at the speed of light. I mean, they're moving so fast. Yesterday, President Trump vowed to shut down the Department of Education. Again, that has been a promise that has been made since the Reagan administration, as long as I'm alive. And Trump is actually going to do it. He's going to outsource all of the functions of the Department of Education to other departments. And if he doesn't fully shut down the Department of Education because he requires congressional approval to do it, he'll just gut it, that's precisely what he should do. The Department of Education is a giant subsidy machine for left-wing causes. That's what it is. Here is President Trump.
How soon do you want the Department of Education to be closed?
Oh, I'd like it to be closed immediately. Look, the Department of Education's a big con job. We're ranked, so they rank the top 40 countries in the world. We're ranked number 40th. But we're ranked number 1 in one department, costs per pupil. So we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world, but we're ranked number 40. We've been between 38 and 40. The last time I looked, it was 38, and then I looked 2 days ago, it came out the new list. It came out at number 40, so we're ranked 40.
Okay, by the way, one of the things that Trump, it's so funny. Democrats, continue to claim that Trump is some sort of idiot. I'd like some evidence of this proposition, please. Really, he goes out there and talks to the press every single day. He has a fairly solid level of fluency with the issues about which he is speaking. He's not afraid to take the questions. He's not hiding behind his old age the same way that Joe Biden did. You guys are getting run over, and you deserve it. All right, coming up, speaking of getting run over, Pam Bondi is now suing, the Attorney General is now suing the state of New York over illegal immigration. If you're not a member, become a member, use code Shapiro, check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.